My name is Ima Jewel Neesmith, my maiden name, Black. And on Friday, I will be 102 years old.
Happy birthday, dear Alma. Happy birthday to you.
Well, when I joined the Navy, I was working in a drugstore in Bessemer, Alabama. And I always knew that there was a big, wide world out there. And I did a lot of dreaming. I knew that I wanted to see the world. So I was working in this drugstore, and this Navy recruiter came in, and he brought a WAVE, W-A-V-E-S, WAVES, Women Accepted for Volunteer Service. And he looked at me and said, you know, you can wear a uniform just like that. Well, when he said that, there were sparks that went off in my head because I knew my dream had come true. And so he took me to Birmingham, and I took the test, and he said, this is a big step for you. You passed the test. I want you to go home, and I want you to think about it, and you come back tomorrow, and you can enlist in the Navy. And I said, no, I don't want to wait till tomorrow. I want to do it right now. So I stood in the basement of the recruiting office in Birmingham, Alabama, looked out the window, saw Old Glory waving in a breeze, and I held up my hand, and I enlisted in the Navy. And I never regretted it. It was the greatest thing that I ever did. Remember, this was a war. There was a war raging. And so that was really why they were accepting women in service. And the idea of women in service was we were to serve for 1 year after the end of the war. And at the end of the war, the women in service would be discontinued. There would be no more. It was just a temporary thing. Of course, that's not really what happened. And then after the recruit training, I received orders to Anacostia, southeast Washington, D.C. And it was there that I was stationed the 4 years that I was in service. I did go AWL one time while I was in the military. President Roosevelt, our president, had died. Now, I know he's buried in Hyde Park at his home estate in New York, but there was a funeral. He was first interred in Arlington Cemetery. My friend Rose and I we didn't have duty, but we were not to leave the base, so we got off the base somewhere. You had to have a Liberty card to get off the base. And we didn't have a Liberty card, but we got out the gate. We went to Arlington. And I remember standing at the graveside of the president. Because we were in uniform, I guess they let us stand on the ropes. So we were standing right over the grave. And directly across from me sat Eleanor Roosevelt and her family. So that was something that I will always remember that. And we got back to the base, and we got called, and they asked us where our Liberty card was, and we didn't have one. So they put us on report. So we had to report to our commanding officer. We went to her. And actually it was called Captain's Mast. And she asked us why we left the base when we weren't supposed to. And I said, well, our president had died, and we wanted to go to his funeral. So she never did. We were restricted to the base, and I forgot what other punishment. But this was not entered in my service record. I guess she had a little heart after all. Well, my husband was the smartest and the most handsome chief in the Navy. He was eventually selected as the first Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy. Uh, as such, he represented all of the enlisted men and women in the Navy. You know, they named a ship for my husband. All the time he was in the first Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, we kept hearing that they were going to name a ship for him. And every now and then the rumors would surface that they're going to name a ship for him. And then after we retired, we would occasionally hear, that they were going to name a ship for him. So then finally, I just really had forgotten all about it. My husband is now deceased. And so one day, I got a call from the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, and he said, I've got the Secretary of the Navy here, and he wants to talk to you. And I thought, duh, the Secretary of the Navy wants to talk to me? And he said, yes. And so the Secretary of the Navy, W.A.V.E.S, said, I'm going to name a ship for your husband, the USS Delbert D. Black. And he said, would you like it said any other way? And I said, no, USS Delbert D. Black, DDG 119. I said, that's a fine name. The commanding officer asked me what I wanted for my 100th birthday. And I said, I would like to take a helicopter ride. And so he said, we can do that. I would like to tell you that I have this secret potion that I take daily that keeps me young. But I know this, that up in heaven there is a book, and my name is written in that book. Date of arrival unknown.